Gear abilities in Splatoon can be really complicated, and sometimes it's hard to tell what to run depending on the weapon you play. But today, I'm going to teach you about 3 sub-abilities that you can run on any weapon you play that have utilities such as entering and leaving the battle faster, countering over 50 different damage combos, and a counter to the dreaded main power-up damage weapons. The best part of all is these sub-abilities only require 1 sub each to be effective. This is going to be the start of my gear guide series, so if you want to see more, be sure to subscribe, and without further ado, let's get right into the abilities. The first and most important of these abilities is Bomb Defense. Now, one thing I want to get right off the bat is Nintendo isn't really that good at describing what their abilities do. Bomb Defense doesn't just protect against bombs, it actually protects from sub-weapon and special weapon damage, even if it's not coming from bombs directly. For example, hits from Tenta missiles, inkjet shots, are all other things that it can affect, and 1 sub actually prevents a lot of combos. For example, Soda Slosher does 70 damage and the outside of a bomb does 30, so if you're wearing 1 sub of Bomb Defense, it'll protect you against this combo. There's even more utility than just that. Look at Ink Armor, for example. Ink Armor breaks if it takes 30 damage from anything. However, Bomb Defense can protect your Ink Armor as well, allowing you to live the outside of bombs when you have armor on and tank another extra shot. 1 sub of Bomb Defense actually prevents so many combos that I can't even cover them all. So just to show the scale, here's a list made by the community that shows all the things 1 sub of Bomb Defense prevents. I don't even think I need to talk about this much more. The amount of damage combos 1 sub just helps you survive is insane. And if that's not enough for you, when main power-up was added, this ability was combined with Cold-Blooded to form Bomb Defense DX, meaning now location abilities like Haunt and tracking sub-weapons like Point Sensor and Ink Mine also have slightly reduced effects with 1 sub. While you can technically stack more of Bomb Defense, it doesn't prevent anywhere near as much of the damage combos to run any more of it, so it's not really super worth it. 1 sub is really all you need with this ability. So for the next ability, I need to first explain a little bit about how MPU damage up weapons work in Splatoon. So, when you touch your opponent's ink, you start taking damage on the first frame, or 1/60th of a second, and you take about 0.3 damage. Now this doesn't seem like a lot, after all you can take up to 100 damage, but because main power-up allows weapons to do 99.8 or 99.9 damage, 0.3 is all they need to kill in 1 less shot. And because you can take this damage in again, 1/60th of a second, it's really easy to take this damage without even knowing it, just because you touch enemy ink for just a tiny fraction of a second. Ink resistance can be a big help in counteracting this. Just 1 sub of Bomb Defense can increase the amount of time you can touch enemy ink before you start taking damage from 1 frame to 10 frames, 10 times the amount as normal. Now 10 frames or 1/60th of a second might not sound like a lot, but with how fast inklings move through ink and how small some tiny patches of ink can be that get you taking damage, it actually helps in a lot of situations. As you can see from this clip, the player with 1 sub of ink resistance can swim through this large trail of ink and still be able to be fine from the bamboo, while the player who doesn't still gets 1 shot even though they barely even had any time touching it. If this isn't enough, Ink Res also comes with other useful perks, such as the amount of damage you take per frame, the maximum amount of damage you can take from enemy ink, and, even more importantly, the amount of run speed you have in enemy ink, which also gets drastically boosted with just 1 sub. While you can use more than just 1 sub of ink resistance, I wouldn't recommend it outside of weapons that take a lot of fights and aren't too gear dependent. This is because the stacking of ink res starts to diminish the value you get from it. 2 sub saves you 15 frames, 3 sub saves you 19 frames, and 4 sub saves you 22 frames. As you can see, the more ink res I put out, the less of an effect boost I get. 1 sub increases it from 1 to 10 frames, which is much larger than any of the other ink res amounts you can add, so I would just recommend adding 1 sub for most weapons. The last of the 3 sub abilities is the simplest, but just as important as the others, Quick Super Jump. Quick Super Jump can be very useful for getting in and out of fights faster, as you probably already know. But one thing that people don't take into account as much is jumping out of fights. Super jumping away from fights that are already lost are very useful because you don't have to go through a respawn time, and more importantly, you maintain all of your special meter. One sub a quick super jump not only increases the speed of your super jump pretty fast, but more importantly, it especially decreases the amount of time before you take off the ground, meaning you have a lot less vulnerable time to be able to jump out, making it a lot easier to get out of bad situations, and when you get back into the fight, your super jump will also be a good bit faster. 2 or 3 subs of quick super jump can make this time even quicker, however, it's not by anywhere near as drastic an amount as the first sub, so I'd really only recommend it for backliner weapons who like to maintain their special a lot, and stingray weapons since they can use those at any range and being in their spawn is often the safest place to use it at. I also want to mention Special Saver in this video, as 1 sub of it saves around 9% of your special meter when you die. Now, why didn't I mention this with the other 3 utility subs is because it's much more situational on the weapon you run, because it's dependent on the type of special it has and how often it dies. So unlike the other 3 sub abilities, it isn't good on every single weapon, but it's not really bad on anything either, just a bit more dependent on what you use specifically. But with that all being said, I hope these utility subs help you add a bit more to your gear set. They're the simplest way to improve your gear, since they require, again, just 1 sub. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're looking forward to more from this series.